All in all, it's been a little, we had these kind of conversations at the end of last year, and of course we'd had a lot of very serious fires last year, larger serious fires, including the condo block in Inglewood, which was like 5 alarms, if I remember rightly. This year it's been a bit quieter. I mean, we had the Enoch house downtown, we had a serious fire in Kincora where 3 people passed away, unfortunately. We had one in Legacy recently. There was South Centre Distribution Centre, and Springbank Hill, I think, was the other one. So back to a more normal level of large fires. We're seeing that we might end up the year very slightly down on call volume, something like 1.5% or something like that, which isn't really significant. Opioids have been very topical the last few years. We're seeing about the same number of calls to people with emergencies around opioids, although we've seen a real decline in the use of Narcan, which may mean either they're not at that stage where we need to administer Narcan, or perhaps Alberta Health Services are administering it rather than us. We'll look into that a little more. But of course the big thing this year has been the city's financial situation, with 2 budget reduction exercises, the first in July, where we were asked to find $7.6 million, but also there was another exercise going on for about 1.4, so it was about $9 million in savings. And then of course rolling into November, those earlier savings were for this year, 2019, and then of course rolling into November, where we were talking about next year, where we were asked to find $7 million more of reductions, although to their credit, and very thankful for this, council decided only to take half that amount from, I think, the whole city. So they took $3.5 million back into the coffers to, for good reason. I mean, the city's struggling, the economy is certainly struggling, and we are part of the city, and we have to step up to the plate to help with reducing the tax burden on residential and non-residential taxpayers. So we get that, we've done that. It's something though where the continuation of reductions over the years now is starting to have a bit of a compounding effect, and will certainly challenge us into the future. I think one of the mistakes that we've made over the years is, and we're part of it, is we've tended to think a new community, you put a new engine in a station and everything's good. The challenge with that is we have 2 measures of performance. The first one is how long it takes the first unit to get to the scene, and doing that approach of having an engine in a station gets you over that piece. When you think about, though, if you actually have a more serious call, particularly one where you've got an escalating fire where you need 3 or 4 trucks at the call, and 12 or more staff at the call, we really haven't, until fairly recently, thought about putting more of those ancillary trucks into service to make sure we can accomplish that. So that's going to be the challenge moving forward. And the challenge is you're often servicing areas that don't have a lot of call volume, but there is risk there. And there often isn't the tax base there, as we've just discussed. So it's all a bit of a puzzle that we have to unravel and think carefully about. What does growth look like? Based on the fact that I believe next year we will see some more cases come forward for new communities on top of those 41. Right. So I mean, again, we're probably pushing a bit of a problem down the road, because all of those people are going to be paying taxes. We'll expect a level of service that I'm not sure that we, and I can't speak for other city services, but certainly that we may not be able to provide. I think if you spoke to any of the firefighters here today, or anyone working today, some of the most challenging fires we face now are in those newer communities, especially the ones previous to the improvements in the building code that we've spoken to. It's the building code, rather than the fire code, where fire spreads very rapidly from one home to the next, because vinyl siding, oriented strand board, those kinds of things, lightweight construction. So once the fire does get in there, not long till collapse of floors, very hazardous for firefighters as well as occupants. And we've seen over the years a number of times where we arrive not to a house fire, but 3 house fires or 5 house fires, especially if the wind is not playing the way you'd like it to, and those kind of things. And you generally have longer response times in those kind of communities. So it's a pretty dangerous environment, and something relatively new to us, although now we've probably had a couple of decades of these kind of fires, but they're very different to the the bigger lots you'd see of homes, where the homes are put long ways on the lot, where there's dimensional lumber, and the homes aren't that close together. They're not that far apart, I beg your pardon. And it's a totally different type of firefighting, different priorities, and different tactics, those kinds of things, different training we need to provide to make people safe in those circumstances. I mean, a lot of it will be how do we adapt to the new normal of less resources, and how do we make sure we're still providing the absolute best service that we can to Calgarians in this new environment. I think I've talked about the training. We have to make sure that we somehow create this capacity to have our people trained to an appropriate level, given the very difficult jobs they do in many different disciplines. So I think those will be two of the bigger challenges we have. We're also, we have a big focus right now on attracting a more diverse workforce to our career, and making sure we have the right kind of workplace to receive that greater diversity. So focusing on behavior and inclusion and those kinds of things are big focuses for us. And you don't have to look very far in fire services or police agencies or the military to see some really troubling things about how that's being handled in other places, or has been handled. I mean, we're not perfect, but we are doing a lot of work to make sure we do have a workplace that's suitable for a diverse workforce, and a culture that welcomes those people, embraces those people, and gives them every opportunity to succeed in what is a very rewarding career.